Good morning. Welcome to Failure to Stop. It's the Friday breakdown. We're to one show a week, sometimes more if there's interviews, all first responder related content. But if you miss the news that we used to have on this channel, it has moved over to FAWKES, Fox, as in Guy Fox News on the podcast. And we update that 3-4 times a week with all the most pertinent news that everybody needs to know, not just first responders, but everyone. But it's given to you in the perspective of former first responders and military veterans, and just like our little take at independent journalism. And it got super popular on this channel, but we wanted to make this channel specifically to first responders. And so we do big case breakdowns. It is a live show. It's every Friday at 11 o'clock a.m. There's a live chat on the YouTube channel, which is called Failure to Stop. And there's a couple of people lining up in the chats already. Brandy Heller says, hello, everyone. It's been a while. Folk Around Find Out says, I'm here. Im says, I'm here. Morning, somebody else says. Will Cray says, hey, y'all. So it keeps going on. Appreciate you guys for being here. Today's show brought to you by ghostbed.com/Wolfpack and factormeals.com/Wolfpack50. I always say that mental wellness and mental health starts with two things: good night's sleep and a healthy diet. Both of those come in the companies that sponsor us. Good night's sleep by Ghostbed and good diet by factormeals.com. Support those who support us. Check out Factor Meals and check out Ghostbed. All right, today we're breaking down this incident that happened at a Madison Christian school involving a school shooter, Natalie Rupnow. How do you pronounce that name, Josh?
Oh, I don't have it up here.
That's all right. And then also we've got this weird outlier in California and the San Diego, the Carlsbad area named Alexander Paffendorf. And so there's some really strange things going on in this case that aren't really so strange. Just our media and journalism in general has just become so strange over the years. Just kind of because mainstream and legacy media always has a particular picture they want to paint for you, it kind of obscures the heart of what's going on, kind of the meat and potatoes. And we don't really get very fair journalism across the board. And I see that happening right now in this Madison school case. So I want to talk a little bit about some things that maybe parents should be aware of. It's the Christmas season. And I don't want to bring you down, but this is the kind of that time of year where depression. Matter of fact, I was just talking to another work associate of mine, and that helps us out with this podcast stuff, and I was talking to her on the phone and asked if she was ready for the holidays, and she said that the holidays are hard for her this time of year because of depression and everything like that. So it is that time of year where it's really happy for some people, and it's also very sad for other people. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that too, because holiday work violence and things like that are going to go up. But today's breakdown, more or less, more of a Tansey rant for the Christmas holiday. I'm working on a story currently about the officer in Washington, D.C., who shot the female trying to get onto the house floor. I wasn't ready to break that one out. That was my goal, was to have it ready by Christmas. There's too many people not answering their phones, and I don't want to give out information without having the proper conversations before we go into this. So anyway, with all of that, just made a $1,200 donation my company agreed to. No, just made a $1,200 donation my company agreed to the Sentinel Foundation. Hold that up there real quick. I'm going to send this to the CEO, to the Perez of Sentinel Foundation. He's going to be stoked on that one. I'll send that out. Man, Armory Night, super appreciative of that. Thank you. That will definitely go to support all the efforts going on in Western North Carolina, which Sentinel Foundation, their main mission is child trafficking globally. But because they've been boots on the ground, volunteering their time and doing the Lord's work on the ground in Western North Carolina right now, guess who you think is the frontline offensive movement for child trafficking in Western North Carolina? Just so happens that there's some guys that special operations, special forces soldiers on the ground who specialize now in child trafficking and have kind of switched roles in Western North Carolina. So that money is definitely going to save the children and save other families. Somebody said I had a haircut. I do. It's a mullet. I get my hair cut at Great Clips. I have for 13 years. So I don't have a barber or a whatever, a stylist. So I get something, I there's notes in the computer, just says what I want. It's always said what I want. Like when I was a cop, I had the same haircut every time. Every 3 weeks, I got the same damn haircut. Now it's just a mullet with a 2 on the sides. But every barber or stylist that you get at Great Clips has their own interpretation of those notes. And I don't hate it, but it ain't my favorite. Kind of shows off my cauliflower ear a little too much on the side, which is getting a little bruised. Somebody called it out the other day, but that's all right. It is what it is. Appreciate you guys for noticing. Here we go. Let's get into the breakdown. Josh, are you with me today? Good morning.
I'm here.
Good morning, Josh.
Good morning.
Good morning. This is a tough one, man. This is a tough one. This one, I homeschool my children, guy. I'm going to make some parents really uncomfortable in today's episode, and I hope you don't judge me or judge this show based on today's episode. This is the last show before Christmas. We're off next week. So, and we're working on this bigger story going into the new year. And this isn't a typical breakdown. This is more of what we call a Tansey rant. And I want you to be a little uncomfortable, but I don't want you to hate me. I want you to have the debate with me about the things I'm going to bring up today. It would really help, and I think it helps society. And that was originally what Failure to Stop was 4 years ago when it came out, was speaking the language of police and speaking the language of society and culture and civilians and kind of merging the gap. So from
You muted yourself. Your mic actual on the mic. You got to touch it.
Yeah, we go. I always do that. But no, I wanted to, from a cop's perspective, and now this is a case where we don't have any malfeasance. We don't have anything that's going on with the police. There's nothing wrong with the police response. Let's go over the police response for the shooting really quickly. So this thing happened around like 10:57 in the morning. I have an actual timeline for you.
I've got it from the city of Wisconsin.
Okay.
The first call went out at 10:57. It was a second grade teacher. Teacher was originally reported as a second grader. Wasn't a second grader. At 10:57, the first call went out. Officers, first law enforcement entered the building at 11 o'clock, which is 3 minutes later. 24 seconds later, officers with the Madison Department entered the building at 11:01. So they got dispatched at 11. They were on scene almost immediately. 24 seconds later, they were in the building. So from the time that the call went out to the time that they were boots on the ground in the building was less than 5 minutes.
Yeah. And they alerted that the shooter was down at 11:05, which is 11 minutes after the shooting actually occurred. Literally 4 minutes after the first cop made it in the door. So that means they were booking it. This is I think they said it was like 23 acres, 26 acre campus. So, that's good job on the cops for getting there within, less than 5 minutes and assuring that the shooter was down. 11:14, they cleared the building was considered cleared. Which that's a lot, right? So it takes time to go into every single door, do a bomb sweep really quick before you allow medical personnel to come in there. So we're not making, an even bigger mass casualty event. 11:23, the bomb dogs had cleared all the additional threats. And by 11:26, EMS was able to get victims dispatched to the hospital by 11:26. So, really within the span of 30 minutes, we had this thing pretty much zipped up. And so school shootings, as far as law enforcement is concerned, everybody's getting really good at it. Everybody's doing a lot more training. I think Uvalde kind of put a lot of pressure on departments to really ramp up their school shooting things. But here's what's not going on. This is from the police perspective. What we're not doing is we're not preventing the school shootings. All we're doing is prepared to play defense in the occurrence that a active shooter happens. we're not playing offense. And what I say me is, it's, you always say it takes like what does it take? It takes a city to raise what's the quote? It takes
Takes an army to raise.
it takes a town to raise a family. I don't know. Look it up for me. But anyway, it takes
Takes a village to raise a child. There we
takes a
go.
village to raise a child. People throw that around quite a bit. It takes a village to raise a child, and I agree with that in certain sentiments. Being a father of 5 children, I do see where that is important. That your neighbors are looking out for your children, your social constructs, your churches, your schools, your after school programs, your co-op programs, all those things go into helping raising healthy children. But what we have right now is we as a whole, not law enforcement, but as a whole, the village, we are not doing our part to make sure that we aren't having school shootings to begin with. We're not playing offense. We are playing simply defense. We all know we have an amazing sports show on Fox News every Thursday, and it's so daggone good. John is brilliant. He's so funny. Jason, the two of them, their dynamic is awesome. And even if you don't like sports, it's super fun to listen to.
Learn something.
Huh?
You'll learn something every time. I learn something every time.
You learn something every time. And so I don't know, where was I going with that? Was I just trying to just selflessly push their sports show?
John's awesome. The sports show is awesome. We have a great sports show on Thursday.
Oh, okay. So anyway, they were talking about on their sports show defense, right? And you can talk to these defense guys that anytime, a team is trying to hold on to this very small lead that they have, what they do is, they play this defense where they push everybody back, because they're wanting to cover the end zone. And what happens is you get these massive plays that bust out for massive yards, and it makes you really intense. And because, that's why we don't play that kind of a defense. But when it comes to school shootings, it's almost the kind of defense that we set up. We draw way back, and then and we kind of just do the bare minimum to stop from getting into the end zone. And that's going to make for big, giant breakaway cases and mass casualty events. And what we need to start doing as a society as a whole is get to the bottom root cause of why these school shootings are happening and why these copycat incidents are kind of occurring. And it's because, I have a brother that's in the school system, and I'm able to chat with him about these kinds of things. And at the end of the day, if we want to have an objective conversation, and we're okay with being made uncomfortable, we have to take fairness, and we also have to take equality out of the question. You can't be fair, equal, and safe. Maybe I'm wrong, guys. Listen, I'm seeing my issue best. I just want to start the conversation. From a cop's perspective, what I don't think that we can have is something that's fair, equal, and if we really want safety, if safety of our children is the most important thing, then we cannot have fairness and we cannot have equality. Because what's not fair is who is the most qualified to protect our children. That's never going to be fair. It's never going to be equal. What do I mean by that? I'm not being sexist or racist. But what I'm saying is if you are a 5'2" male and you weigh 130 pounds, and you have no training as far as martial arts training, and you haven't worked extremely hard in some kind of combatives or some kind of, you are not going to protect anyone. You're simply not. You're not going to protect Josh against a guy like me if you're not trained. And you're that small and you're that tiny. And so it's not fair, but I don't think you should be a cop. If you can't meet the requirements, if you can't carry the weight, if you can't run the distance, then you cannot be a cop. If you're fat and you can't make the requirements that, you run a certain distance, you do a certain amount of push-ups, you drag a body if you can't meet those requirements, you cannot be a cop. If you're a female and you can't meet those expectations, you can't be a cop. I don't think you should be a firefighter either. I think it should be across the board. We have one standard, and if you don't meet that standard, you can't be a cop. Well, that's not fair. That's not equal. That's not DEI. That's not diversity. That's okay, because my safety shouldn't depend on whether something's fair or equal. And so if you want to make schools safe, we cannot be fair and we cannot be equal. It's not fair that if you show up to a school with a gun, but you don't brandish it, you get expelled from school and you don't ever get to go back, which means you're fucked for life. You don't get to go back. That's not fair. But you know what? That's okay, because fairness shouldn't trump the safety of our children. Now, we have cases in Raleigh where an individual was rumored to have a gun. You pull said individual who is a gang member aside. They do have a gun and they run from you, but they're not expelled because they did not brandish the gun at school. They simply just had it. And so that's not worthy of expulsion. And so they're allowed to come back to school after the juvenile process, which is a joke because the juvenile process isn't going to accept them because they didn't commit any violent crimes. And so you're not going to get a secure custody order, so they get kicked right back to their parents and they go right back to school the very next day. Fairness and equality does not work when we're trying to keep children safe. Go ahead.
I think you keyed in on a word there that we're going to come back to. Parents. I don't want to get you off track, but I just want to. Parents, maybe lack thereof. I don't know. Just trying to put out a common denominator factor here. I don't want to get you too far sidetracked. But we have to take an objective look at this, because you know what's not fair? Not fair is cleaning up dead kids off the school. That's not fair. Guess what's not fair? Responding to this stuff. You don't get to pick and choose which ones you get to go to. Guess what's not fair? Responding to this stuff over and over and over again. Responding to the same things. This life is not fair. I don't know what mom and dad didn't tell you this, what school didn't tell you this, what teacher didn't tell you this, principal, I don't know who didn't tell you this, but you need to hear this. Life, it is not fair. It is cruel. It is harmful. It is beautiful on the other side of the coin, but there's two sides of the coin. You have to understand that you have to protect yourself. Eric's talking about standards because guess what? If you go in there and you're a 110-pound dude and you can't physically meet the standards, but the suspect that you're trying to overwhelm is a 250-pound dude that spends his life at the gym. You don't meet the standard, so you put yourself and everybody else at jeopardy.
I as far as the cop thing goes, I really wanted today get into fairness, and it's not on the police behalf. This is on school safety. That guy, Ryan89, I am glad you're in there. He says he's an SRO and he says the system is broken. And this is one of the things I really want to talk about today is that this is so important. It says, take everything you said and add if the kid has an ADHD diagnosis, those kids can get away with anything because any bad behavior is considered impulsive behavior, which is a symptom of ADD. Now, if you follow my Instagram, if you follow the Fair Stop Instagram or the Eric Tansey official, I made a story today that says I was going to make some parents uncomfortable, and I really am. I actually try to put the comment in the comment section here on the live feed that says, I'm going to make parents a little uncomfortable on today's show. And the YouTube said my comment was rejected. So here's the exact comment. It says, I'm going to make some parents very uncomfortable today. Laugh out loud. YouTube rejected this comment, meaning they think it is spam. Try changing it a bit. Well, we're the curators of the channel, so I don't know how we're going to spam our own channel. It was coming from the not even just the admin, but the actual channel itself. So here we go. Now, the ADHD thing is very important to me because, ADHD, we are altering. This is the conversation I want to have. I want to get uncomfortable on it. And if you stop following the show, that's fine. I don't want you to stop following the show. I want you to pipe back and don't be afraid. I'm not going to bully you. I'm not going to shame you. I can only speak from my perspective. I was told my entire life that I had ADHD. My second grade teacher, I was the only ADHD student in my second grade class. And I was forced to have a cubicle. So in a classroom full of regular kids, I had this cardboard cubicle that was built on a platform that went around my desk so that I could not see anybody else in the classroom. Now, I posted a little bit of my stand-up comedy. You guys know that I just written a book. Here's the editor's copy. The book actually comes out August. It is the fall release for Simon Schuster. It's called Piglet, a seriously funny true story by Eric Tansey and New York Times bestselling author Nick Palmigano. And it is a comedic book written by me about my life and co-authored by Nick Palmigano. So I wrote the book, and Nick Palmigano went back through the book and really just kind of put it into a rhythm and change some of the words here and there. But overall, this book, I wrote every single page of this book, every single page, and they even took chapters out. I wrote 322 page book that I wrote myself. And I'm not saying this to brag, but I'm saying this. I also started a distillery. I owned and operated a distillery for 7 years. I served in special operations in the military. I was selected by the Special Forces Assessment and Selection through that process. I became a Raleigh police officer, and I was eventually Officer of the Year. But when I was in second grade, I was put into a cubicle, and I made a post on social media, and my second grade school teacher a few months ago, less than 2 months ago, said, Eric, my name is Miss So-and-so. I was your second grade teacher. Do you remember me? I'm so glad to see that you're doing well. And I wrote back. I waited 2 days to think about what I wrote back because, she could only do what she knew. And that was 30 years ago. So, you only know what you know. And I'm sure she was super young back then, but I felt like I'm not going to be mean, but I want to write what's been bothering me for my whole life, because public school system made me what I am, but also I've been very anti the public school system. And this is why. And I wrote her, I said, listen, of course I remember you. Second grade is the first class I really remember. I remember kindergarten. I lost 5 popsicle sticks and I got in trouble, and I'll never forget that. But in second grade was the only other memory I had. It was my first real memory of school that I had. And it was because you put me in a cubicle and everybody made fun of me. I was not on anybody's radar until second grade. And then in second grade, it took me years to get back. I had no friends. People wouldn't talk to me on the playground. My second and third grade life was miserable. Miserable. I did anything. I lashed out for attention in any way that I could. Because the only attention I got was negative. I mean, because I was this kid that got stuck in a cubicle, my mom had bought me a Pittsburgh Pirates shirt. I was a Pittsburgh Pirates fan. And I wore it to school one day. One of these kids was like, hey, that's my Pirates shirt. And my mom had bought it from a garage sale, and he pulled the tag out and had my initials, and everybody made fun of me. It was awful. I'm telling you, my second, third, fourth, and fifth grade were terrible. I couldn't stand school. I cried myself to sleep. I hated school. In sixth grade, I was, I was always a surfer. But and I grew up surfing a lot all through even elementary school with my dad and my dad's friends. And so surfing, but it wasn't until sixth grade that somebody saw me at the beach surfing, and they were like, whoa, he's actually a surfer and he's really good. And I became cool kind of overnight because I got known as like, hey, this guy surfs. And I was no longer this weirdo that had to be in a cubicle. I was now this kind of like, I was a real Spicoli. If you've ever seen Fast Times at Ridgemont High, my nickname was Spicoli. People call me Spicoli all the time. I had the same long hair and, yeah, bro, dude, this and that. And so, but I became cool. And so in seventh grade, I was put into a class of nothing but ADHD students, and Ritalin became the biggest topic. Everybody wanted me to be on Ritalin, and they wouldn't let me go to a regular classroom. I had to go to the same. Now, I'd never been in trouble in school, and I didn't have a lack of bad grades. I had bad grades because I got zeros, but not because I didn't do the work. I did the work. I never turned it in because my brain didn't want to be there in the first place. When I was in school, all I thought about was surfing and riding my dirt bike because I grew up on dirt bikes. I had a plethora of dirt bikes and a plethora of places to ride them. I grew up in the swamps of Florida, endless trails to ride on. I would pack an extra gas can with me. I would bungee cord it to a little rack that I had on the back of my dirt bike, and I would ride for hours. And it's all I could think about was not being in school. When I was in school, I was like, I'm missing fishing and surfing. And I grew up on the water. So I had the river, I had the intercoastal, and I had the ocean all within minutes of my house. So, I could be in the intercoastal gigging for flounder. I could be in the river shrimping, or I could be out in the ocean surfing. I mean, this was my life. And I wasn't in trouble. It's just I didn't want to be there. And so now I get moved into this classroom where I'm surrounded by other kids who have behavioral issues. So if I'm surrounded by people with behavioral issues and I don't have behavioral issues, what do you think my influence is going to be if I'm stuck in a room where I don't get to go out? So everybody else gets to trade classes, right? Sixth grade, you go to English, math, science, whatever. If I am no longer getting to do that and I'm staying in one classroom all day with one teacher and one group of kids who all have behavioral issues, what do you think my influences are in seventh grade? It's bad behavior. It's all I see are people acting out, and I see the attention that they're getting. And I'm not getting any attention because I'm actually not breaking any rules. But the teacher's not paying any attention to me. So now I have to lash out in my own ways to try to get my own attention. I remember this clearly. And then I remember when they wanted me to take Ritalin, and I knew for whatever reason in my brain, I knew that the Ritalin wasn't the answer, and I didn't want to be changed. I didn't want my mind to be altered. Now, I was in seventh grade, and this was before the internet. The internet didn't exist in the 90s. ADHD was brand new. People hadn't heard that word yet, or bipolar. I never had heard that word bipolar or ADHD, anything at that point. But I knew in my heart of hearts that I didn't want my brain to be altered, and I didn't want to have to take medicine like everybody else in this classroom. And so I never took the medicine. I refused to take it. Well, that landed me in a psychiatrist meeting with my family, which ended up becoming a deal. They said, why won't you take the medicine? My dad was like, well, I'm going to make him take this medicine. And my dad would try to force the medicine down my throat. I would put my fingers down my throat and throw it up. I didn't even know that you could do that. I just knew that while he was shoving it down my throat, it made me gag. And so I would put my hand down my throat to make myself gag it back up. Because that's how bad I didn't want this medication inside of my body. I was in seventh grade with no research. It was just a feeling that I had in my body. And so I fought tooth and nail. And so finally it led to this deal. Like, all right, Eric, we're going to make a deal. 9 weeks. If you can make all C's on your report card, we will not make you take this medication. But if you can't make all C's on your report card, what we're going to do is you're going to do the things for 9 weeks. And I said, dude, I could make A's and B's if I wanted to. And my dad was like, well, if you made A's and B's on your report card, I'll buy you a dirt bike that you want. And this is a story famous in my family. And so I said, great, yeah, deal, we'll do it. So the next 9 weeks started, and I taped a picture of a dirt bike, small picture. We're talking 2 inches by like 3 inches. I'd cut it out of a magazine, very small, and I taped it to this desk. And the teacher at the time, I'll never forget her name. Her name is Miss Mosley. I hated her to death. I still to this day, I have this ultra hate in my heart for this woman, and it's been 30 something years. I'm sure she's not a bad person. I'm sure this was, seventh grade me, but at some point, I named my company C- after her in seventh grade. After this woman, I named my company after this woman. Her name is Miss Mosley. And Miss Mosley would not allow me to have the picture taped to my desk. So we got this guy over here who's carving in his desk, and he, you don't say anything to him. You just let him carve his desk. But I try to tape something on my desk to make me a better person. You won't let me have it. She also goes extremely hard on me. She was extremely a bitch. And she told me that there was no way I was going to make AB honor roll, and that I would be nothing but a C- student the rest of my life. It didn't matter how hard I tried. And she was awful. She graded my papers super unfairly. She did not want me to make the AB honor list. She didn't want it to happen. And I worked super hard, and I made like all A's in 1B or all B's in 1A, something like that. But I made the AB honor roll list. And my dad bought me the dirt bike. And it was extremely special. And I never made another A or B ever again. So for 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, even in physical education, I would get C's. And people would be like, how do you get a C in phys ed? Like it's playing soccer and basketball. I would literally on purpose put on different colored socks to get points knocked off because I swore I would never make another B or A because I was forced to make an A or B at the punishment of having to be taking psychotropic meds that were going to alter my brain. See, I knew I didn't want to be in school because I wanted to be outside. And I thought it was unfair that you're going to make me go to school for 8 hours a day or whatever it is. And you're going to give me minimal windows and you're going to give me minimal shit to do. And you're going to just absolutely tell me everything. Art class, you go to art class and they tell you exactly what art you have to make. You guys are going to make a pot. You're going to make it this way. You're going to have one of these designs on it. You have no creativity. So I don't want to make your fucking pot because that's stupid. I don't want to do any of that. We're going to go to English class, but you have to read this book. And you have to read it in this way. And it has to be, you can't be read to, you have to read this book. Well, then I'm never going to read again because I don't like any of your books. I don't want to read The Giver again. I've already read it. You know what I'm saying? And so now I hated reading books because of school forcing me to read books. Telling me that I'm not a good student because I hate mathematics. But the problem with I really don't. I still to this day do not do math at all for any reason. I just don't do it. I like to do hands-on things. I really liked shop class and I liked the fabrication class. I even liked the baking class where you bake stuff, but you couldn't do those because you know why? They wouldn't let me do shop class or baking class because I didn't make good enough grades in English, science, and math. Here's where I'm going with this, guys. And when it comes to schools, is that we have taken creative kids, we've taken kids who are different, and we're trying to make them all the same. And we're altering their brains by Prozac, Zoloft, Ritalin, melatonin, because we don't want natural bodies. And this is parental illness, and I see parents do this way too much. It's got to stop. If you got a kindergartner on Ritalin, I'm telling you right now, I'm judging you. You're a bad parent. You're not being a good parent. You're not getting on your child's. You're being lazy. I'm telling you. If this makes you upset, let me know in the comments. If it's you, but I want to talk to you. I have 5 children that I homeschool, and none of them have any problems. None of them have any issues. The only time my one son had issues, my oldest son, was when he actually went to school. And they were like, he's intolerable. We can't take it. He's wide open. Da, 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 da. And we had to pull him out of the school early. It was a Christian school, and it was in kindergarten. We had to pull him out early. We've homeschooled ever since. He's never been a problem. Go follow him on social media. His social media is brilliant, and he does it himself. The kid's almost a pro skater at 11. He's a fully sponsored skateboarder who is incredible. And everybody that meets him can attest. People in the chats have met him. The kid is amazing. All of my kids, they're incredible. And here's the thing, is because the school system is trying to take a certain minority of children and make them the same as all the other children. It's like the school system has a standard of child, which is the yes child, which is the child that is right-brained or whatever, that's into being able to sit and read a book and to comprehend and to obey and to listen and to raise their hands and to fall in line. And then there are certain kids out there like me who were not born that guy. And when they ask why, they are punished. Don't ask me why, just do it. Because I said so. When you get to the military, what are you taught in the military? What is a big misconception in the military that all you veterans hear, right? When you get out of the military, you have your friends that are civilians. What do they call you? What do they say? They say you've been brainwashed, right? Like, oh, you become a robot. You've been brainwashed. And it's true. And we want to be brainwashed. You need to have a certain amount of brainwashing to do the things that the military does. You have to have that discipline of doing exactly what they say, exactly when they do it, because everybody's lives depend on it. But that is a choice that person has to make. But we're trying to do that in the school systems right now. We're trying to make everybody like they're in the military. We're trying to make everybody like, and it's fine. If you have that child that loves reading and they love math and they love being obedient and they love behaving, awesome job. That's an awesome kid to have too. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's also something to be said about the parents who have that kid who, now listen, this is all in the terms of you have good parents. We're going to talk here in a second about bad parents, which is a total different illness. I call it parental illness. But for the good parents out there, it's okay to have that child that is a little bit, that is a why child. Why? Why are we raising our hand? Why do I have to ask you to go to the bathroom? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. My son was talking to my brother, who's an active school teacher right now, and my brother was. We went to try to go visit him, and we couldn't visit him. The school's on they have a lockdown thing. You can't just come inside of a school and go see somebody. So they had to like buzz my brother in to see us, and it was like this airlock door. It was so much like prison. And my brother was explaining that he had to escort somebody to the bathroom and blah blah blah. And my 11-year-old was like, "You had to escort them to the bathroom? What does that mean?" And he was like, "I had to take them to the bathroom." He said, "Well, yeah, I get that, but aren't they in the school? Like they can't go to the bathroom by themselves?" My brother's like, "No, no. They have to have like an escort to and from class if it's within, and it's crazy." And my son just couldn't boggle it, and he would not get off of it the whole week. He was like, Dad, like they have to ask to go to the bathroom? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, what if the teacher says no? And it's like, well, that sucks, I guess. I don't know. He's like, but that's crazy. Like they can't just go to the bathroom. And I was like, no. He's like, what if they really have to poop? And I was like, I guess you just got to poop your pants or something. I don't know. I was like, but that's this public school system, man. So now we have, well, I think it's important to know that once you start putting children on Ritalin or any psychotropic or psychiatric drug, and we think that this is normal. Maybe it's not normal, guys. Maybe giving your kid Ritalin, which is going to keep them awake and keep them alert, and then they can't go to sleep at night. So then we give them melatonin to make them go to sleep. And then they wake up and we put them on Ritalin. And some of these kids, and I've talked to SROs, they're on a maximum adult prescription of Ritalin by the time they're in like second or third grade. Well, why do you think that is? Well, because if you start something like that in kindergarten, you're going to become taller. If I start drinking 3 beers a night, right tonight, dude, 3 beers in, I'm going to be a little bit goofy. I'm going to get a little bit silly, probably be a little bit horny, to be honest with you. So I got 5 kids. I'll start with it's that third beer, man. If I can push past the third beer, I'm probably not going to get my wife knocked up. But if I stop at that third beer, she's getting knocked up. You know what I'm saying? Like that just gets me randy just enough, But if I started right now drinking 3 beers a night, I probably by the end of the week wouldn't feel anything in 3 beers. At the end of the month, it'd be like water at that point, right? So if we're starting Ritalin and all these drugs at the same age in kindergarten, don't you think that their tolerance level by the time they're in 5th or 6th grade? Now, look, I brought up some of these things. It says, what's the definition of ADHD? Here we go. Let me go up to the top. Symptoms and diagnosis. Many children may have. This is coming from psychiatry.org. Patients and family with ADHD. So go to www.psychiatry.org/patients families ADHD. All right. Many children may have difficulty sitting still, waiting their turn, paying attention, being fidgety, acting impulsively. However, children who meet diagnostic criteria for ADHD differ in their symptoms of hyperactivity, impulsivity, organization, and or inattention are noticeably greater than expected for their age or developmental level. These symptoms lead to significant suffering and cause problems at home, at school or work, and in relationships. The observed symptoms are not the result of individual being defiant or not being able to understand tasks or instructions. All right. The only reason that these things pose a problem is if you're a shitty parent. If you're not able to sit there and critically think your way through how your child can naturally make it through this world without forcing a drug, you are a lazy parent. Now that's different than the guy. Like, listen, when I started my distillery business, I wasn't supposed to be part of any of the paperwork process. I tried to hire that off as well because I know I'm not the guy that does paperwork. I suck at paperwork. I don't have the organization. I have to pawn that off, or I will fail every time. But if it was really important to me, if I was the only guy to do it, and I had to be done to make me successful in something that I wanted to do, I would have no problem taking those drugs or forcing myself in some way or somehow to maintain that focus. I would probably start with the diet. If you have a kid that's hyperactive, inattentive, and impulsive, I will say that you should start with their diet first and foremost. If you start cutting out some of the bullshit and your child, if my kids have MSG, I immediately know it. This is why I will have my kids go to somebody's house. They go to their friend's house, play, goof around. They come home. At nighttime, their behavior, I will ask them, hey, did you have ramen noodles at so-and-so's house? No. Do you have Doritos? Yeah. Oh, I can tell. I can tell from their behavior when they've had MSG, mainly ramen noodles. I mean, ramen noodles make my kids go nuts, especially my oldest one. But there are things that are there in these diets that are causing your children to be hyperactive. And if you're not giving them an outlet to get rid of that hyperactivity, you're going to have bad kids. Screen time is another thing. These screens at a young age are rotting your child's brain. It makes them even more impulsive. And there are plenty of studies that people aren't talking about. It is absolute child abuse to have your kids locked into a screen for more than an hour, every day. I'd say if your kid is consuming screens for more than an hour of a day, that is a parental illness that you should look into. And it's something that it's almost like a diet, right? If your kid is chunky and lethargic and doesn't want to go outside, a parental illness that you should check on yourself. A remedy to that is maybe we switch up that diet and see if the energy levels come up. If your kid has too much energy and is too hyperactive and is not being able to pay attention, and not being, then again, parental illness. Is it the diet that's causing him that day? Is he sucking down sodas? Are we not giving him outside time? Is he a hyperactive kid that we were forcing to stay inside of a school? All of these things this is all parental illnesses that are going unchecked with none of these symptoms, and they're all being remedied through psychotropic drugs. And then we wonder why there is this massive amount of mass shooters, depressions, and suicides. And I'm telling you right now that the root problem, the root cause of all of this, 98% of the problem is parental illness. It's you not doing your job as a parent. Being a parent is really fucking hard. It's really fucking easy, and it's very hard at the same time. Every day I have to analyze. Every night I stop and I have a meditation, and I do it through prayer. And I say, God, how can I meet the needs of Elkin? What am I not doing with my middle child, Elkin, that I need to get on his level? He's got this kind of thing on. He's got a little attitude in his step. How can I work on that? How can I work on August? How August is shy and he's subdued and he likes art. And how do I make him a better artist? How do I have him chase this passion of art? How do I get more music into Elkin's ears? And how do I get energy out of Duke? And then how do I make my daughter feel pretty and loved and accepted? But it takes a ton of work and a ton of meditation, a ton of self-awareness as a parent of what am I doing? If there is a problem with one of my children, it is 100% my fault. Before the age of 18, whatever my kid does or doesn't do is 100% my fault. I will give Jocko all the credit, Jocko Welnick, on that. Extreme ownership. If your kid's fat, it's your fucking fault. If your kid's misbehaving and rude and ugly to other people and is a bully, that's your fault. If your kid can't sit in a restaurant without having a screen and behave, and they're 3 years old or older, that is your fault. You created that monster. If you have to say, hey, stop crying, here's a screen, that's your fault. And where do you think that goes? If you're at 3 years old, having to give your child, the only option you have to get your child to shut the fuck up in a restaurant is to give them the screen, what do you think happens when that kid's in second grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade? I'm not saying you can never give your kid a screen at the table. There's certain occasions for certain things. Matter of fact, I'll tell you a funny story. My wife, we were buying Christmas presents, and so I kicked my wife out of the house with the kids so that I could get these Christmas presents. They're big, big presents, and you can't just hide them. So I have to be able to move them through the yard, move them back to the barn, lock them up, blah, 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 blah. There's no way I can get away with that with homeschooled kids. So I tell my wife to take the kids out for the day, but the drop off, the truck didn't show up when it was supposed to. And now it's getting late. And she's like, Eric, I got to come home. It's 5 o'clock. I got to get these kids fed and put to bed and da-da-da-da. And I said, he's not here yet. Take them to dinner. Take them out to dinner. Just take them to a Mexican restaurant. So here's my wife with 5 kids, 2 under the age of 2. And she's now got to wrangle all 5 of them. So she actually came home and she was like, I ended up just giving Birdie, which is my 1-year-old. She's like, I had to just give her a screen. I couldn't do it. I can't make sure all the kids have got their food ordered and do all this other stuff and have one screaming baby. It's not fair. When there's 2 adults, when there's 2 parents, again, which brings you to another point, divorce. It's extremely hard to start raising kids when you're a single mom or a single dad that works all the time. We're not giving these kids the attention. There's one kid in my neighborhood that is a bad, I don't even think he's a bad kid. He is a broken child. He's a broken kid. He writes on chalk. He takes the chalk out of my driveway, writes at the front of my driveway, fuck, shit, fuck the world, all this stuff. The kid's like fucking 14 years old, walking around the neighborhood by himself. But you know what? You know he's the only kid in the neighborhood that does that, and you know that he's the only kid in the neighborhood that has divorced parents. If you're not giving your kids the attention they need, they will go and find attention elsewhere. How does that relate back to this incident at Madison School? Well, what we have here at the Madison School incident is we have a lot of speculation, we have a lot of talk, we have a lot of gun control talk, but we have a lot of talk about metal detectors and all. I think I want to get into all of this here to end out the show. Before I do that, I'm going to do this quick ad read. But I think this is really important because we're not talking about the things that we should be talking about, which are parental illness, and we should be talking about how can we get our kids. We have 24.4 million people in the United States living on prescription medications. You should naturally be able to make it through the day without any prescription pills, through natural remedies, through all sorts of things, through a better diet, healthy diet, but we're not. We're all we're all on these psychotropic medications to change, and we don't want to change the things that really matter so that your body can do these things naturally. Man, it's crazy to me that we think that everything that we do, we have to substitute it and take the easy way out. Every guy that I know is on TRT, and every guy that I know on TRT is banging somebody else, divorcing their wives, and acting like fucking assholes. There's only one guy I know on TRT right now that isn't a fucking piece of shit. No, I shouldn't say that. They're not. I've got a lot of friends that aren't pieces of shit, but I mean, they're like into swinging shit. They're into, they're into cheating on their wives type stuff. They're divorcing their wives. Their wives are getting extremely fat. I'm just telling you from my own personal experience. I know a lot of guys in the military, and it also, the only one that I know that's successful and like is a great family man and a great father. He's the only one that like legit had bottom of the barrel testosterone and was super fat and got on testosterone. And he's done great, and he has an outlet of working out and doing jujitsu and doing all of these other things. And so his motivation is Kevin Bates, but he's the only one I know. He's the only one I know. And it's because we're not trying to get strong the right way by changing our diet and do all the things. No, we're changing our testosterone levels. We're changing the very dynamics of our body. Instead of I struggled with this when I was 38 years old, pretty fucking fat, after not being in the military, not being a cop. And thank God jiu-jitsu came along and I lost 27 pounds. But I was like, I have a hard time even getting off the fucking couch. And the podcast was depressing me. This podcast was depressing me. I always felt like I was letting Mike the cop down, the drinking bros down. They wanted to do all these things. I didn't want to do all these things. And I thought it was me. And I suggested, like, man, maybe I get on testosterone. And my wife, who's super anti all of that, and thank God she is. That's who I learned all this. She says, if you want to get on testosterone, I will put you on testosterone through a diet. And she did. We changed everything about my diet. We changed everything. And I was off. Now I still have the same energy I had now when I was like 13. Still fucking like a rabbit, like I was 13 again. I don't have any other psychotropic drugs or anything like that. Sometimes what we're doing here is we're trying to take the easy way out at every step of the way, and our children are fucking suffering from it because they don't have the mental fortitude, the mental and the mental awareness of what's the drug and what's not the drug. And we've lost self-awareness because we're stuck in screen world and we're stuck in this bad parental shortcuts. We're not giving these kids the attention they need. You should know, there's no way that my kids leave here and I wouldn't know if they had a gun when they left or they didn't. Because I'm in tune with my children. And you should be too. If you have kids, you should know everything about them. You should know much about your kid as you do about your fucking dog. I know dog parents, they know more about what's going on with their dog's poops than they do with their own children. You care so much about your dog shits and your dog turds and the way your dog's limping around, but you haven't noticed that your kid is a social fucking retard and is on the internet with some 25-year-old? If you feel bad and you're upset, then maybe you're the one I'm talking to. I know I'm saying I'm perfect, man. I fell for it too. And I had to make major changes. If you want to make some changes and you want to do it right, I'd say start off with a ghost bed at ghostbed.com/wolfpack. It sleeps so good, it's scary. Once you start getting a good night's sleep, things start falling into place. You can't raise good kids if you're always tired yourself. And ghost beds, ghost bed pillows are a great way to get that started. I can't live without my ghost bed. I love my ghost bed. It is a lifelong pillow. I don't think I'll own another pillow in my life besides ghost bed. It is strong. It is sturdy. I travel with it. I camp with it. I do all the things right now. You can get 40% off site wide right now. Go to ghostbed.com and you still got time for Christmas. If you were trying to get that special gift for somebody right now, give them a ghost bed. Get them a ghost bed pillow. Get them the cooling sheets. Get them the massage topper. Sleep so good, it's scary. It's the gift that keeps on giving and giving and giving. I'm not talking about STDs. I'm talking about good night's rest. We talked about diet. You want to start a good, healthy diet? You want to start working your way off of some of these psychotropic meds? Find out what foods trigger you. Oh, that's weird, Eric. But you're not a doctor. You shouldn't be talking like this. What are you, some kind of like RFK Jr. freak? No, but it doesn't fucking take a doctor to realize that when my kids have ramen noodles, they act like extreme maniacs. That when they go to Nana's house and they come home, they act like extreme. When they go to their friend's house and play video games all night and they come home and they have impulsive anger issues and they're punching each other and hitting each other and snatching. Once my kids start snatching and getting snippy, I know they've been playing video games. If they're bouncing off the walls, giggling and laughing around and they won't go to bed, I know they've had ramen noodles or something with like tons of MSG in it. I can tell when my kids have had not enough water. I'm in tune with these things. So listen, it doesn't take a doctor to kind of self-diagnose or be self-aware of what triggers you. Matter of fact, it's so you don't even have to be that. But I had a friend that said he took a soda diet, and this happened on accident. But he takes a soda diet. He drank Diet Pepsi like every day, and but he did like a fasting of soda, and his knee pain went away. He was a jiu-jitsu guy. And at the end of his fasting of soda, he went back and he had a Diet Pepsi and he went back to training and his knee immediately started hurting again. And he's like, I know this sounds weird, but like nothing happened. The only thing that happened was I had a soda. And so he's like, I'm going to go off soda again. So he stops taking soda. His knee pain goes away. So he drinks another soda. His knee pain comes back. So guess what? The guy doesn't drink soda anymore and his knee's fine. And we had a whole conversation about it. It's kind of cool. But dieting is so important. Factor Meals makes that super easy for you to do because these are chef prepared, fresh, never frozen meals delivered straight to your door. They've got the breakfast shakes. They got the breakfast smoothies. They got protein heavy. They got calorie conscious. They got vegan, vegetarian. They got any kind of meal you want. You can get it for lunch and breakfast, dinner, whatever. Factor Meals has a meal plan for you. Start that meal plan now and see what happens in your life. Get a good night's sleep, start eating a good healthy diet and see what changes happen in your life and stop taking. So we shouldn't have 24.4 million people living off of, listen, so I want to read this letter to you. And this is not from a doctor. And I'm not telling you guys, I want to be very clear here. I am no way telling you right now that psychotropic drugs and school shootings are hand in hand. That's silly. That's preposterous. And I don't believe that. It's easy to say that. It's easy to say, well, there's a common theme here that anytime there's a school shooter, they're on some kind of psychomed. Yeah. But what got them to those psychomeds anyway? What got them there? It's the diet. It's the parental illness. It's the lack of parental self-awareness. It's the lack of self-awareness in general and teaching them how to deal with their problems and to deal with obstacles in life like hyperactivity, like depression, to deal with those things by critically thinking your way through them. Instead, we're just like, well, here, try this medication. If that medication doesn't work, try this medication. If your kid can't fall asleep and you have to give them melatonin, then I get your kid's not getting enough outside time. Your kid's not being active enough. My kids, out of all 5 of my kids, I never have a problem putting them to sleep. You know why? Because I keep them going. If you've got your baby outside of the house, walking it around in a stroller, you got your baby crawling around, you're on the floor. But if you put on Miss Kendra or whatever the fuck those kids are, Miss Kara, I don't know, whatever those stupid YouTube channels are. If you put your YouTube channel on and you put a bunch of blocks and you sit your kid in a little room on a blanket and you have them watch Miss Rachel, that's what it is, Miss Rachel all day. Yeah, chances are they're not going to get to sleep very easy. They've been stimulated. They haven't really got any energy out. They got a bunch of shit going on in their brain because they've been watching, screens all day. Maybe you get them outside. Maybe you grab their hands, you walk them around. Maybe you push them on the swing and you push them down the slide. Maybe you let them pet some dogs, some animals, get some of that fine motor skill movement stuff, give them stuff to do with their fine motor skills and some Lego. And at the end of the night, they'll be exhausted. They'll be ready to go to sleep. But what I want to say is, I want to read this to you because it plays a part in the school shooting epidemic. It plays a part in it because we know that if you're putting your kids on all these psychotropic drugs, it's more likely than not that you weren't trying to meet them on their level first. And these psychotropic drugs should be a last resort. And we do everything with the kid. We give him all the outside time. He's super active. He's on the four-wheelers. He's on the skateboards. He's on the rollerblades, the scooter. He's getting all the outside time. He's not on the screens, and he's just still not able to even focus enough to eat a meal. Maybe then we start trying to go to the extreme and put somebody on some of these drugs, or if we've literally felt like we have no other way out, and my kid is suffering because of this. But I bet you that if you look further into it, you're going to find something that is going to, we all have autism, guys. I'd love that everybody's like, well, he's autistic. He's really good at jiu-jitsu. He's autistic. No, he found something that he loves to do, and he does it well because he loves to do it. My kids don't have autism because they're good at skateboarding. My kids found skateboarding and they loved it and they fell in love with it. And I nurtured it and I nourished it and I fed them and I watered that seed. I saw that a seed had been planted by a guy named Pinky. That sounds weird, but I knew that there was something about skateboarding that made my kids different. And so I began to water that. I began to learn more about the sport myself. And I went the extra mile to make sure that every opportunity in skateboarding, without pushing it on them, was there for them. Same with my son with art. I see that the seed has been planted that he loves art. So now I buy blank skateboard decks. He likes skateboard. He likes art. I bought him a blank skateboard deck and some skate paint. And now he paints skateboards. I bought him all the papers and the sketch pads and the charcoal pencils and, all these thoughtful things that I can think of to do them. Sign them up for art classes because I want to nurture those things. And that's what makes them happy. And that's what fulfills their time. And therefore, I don't need to worry about getting them on reel or getting them focused because they're focusing on what they want to do. Maybe you haven't found what your kid really loves yet because you haven't tried. Because you have ignored the seeds that have been planted and you let it go to the wayside. If the seed of skateboarding had been planted in my children and I didn't water that seed, I didn't buy them a skateboard, they wouldn't be skateboarders. They wouldn't do it. That's not how kids work. They need a mom and a fucking dad to do this shit for them. We watch those Disney shows about like playing catch and shit. That's real. That is real. Get off your fucking ass. Put your fucking phone down. Get off the fucking TikTok and go play with your child, please, so we can stop having school shootings. Nobody committed a school shooting because they love their mom and dad so much that they just felt like they need to go fucking shoot up a school. My mom and dad love me so much that I need to go fucking blast Miss, Smith. It's my second grade school teacher. That's not the case. The case is it's always divorced families. It's a lack of parenting, massive traumas, massive abuse. And those are the people that as a village, we need to make sure that we identify those kids and we give them the love that they have. So instead of having the teenager down the street that writes fuck with your chalk and you're like, God damn it, this fucking loser, 14-year-old kid writing with my bullshit chalk and he's putting cuss words and profanity in front of my drive. Instead of having that attitude, the attitude I should have, and I'm guilty of not having that, is, wow, this kid obviously lacks a father figure. His mother is working her ass off. So what can we do as a community to make their lives better? What can we do for mom over there to take some of this pressure off? What social construct can we get this in? What does he love that he could be and pursue? Thank God. What if Eminem didn't have rap? You don't think Eminem wouldn't have been some kind of a fucking school shooter? But the difference was us in the 90s is we were bored, and that's good because we were forced to find things that we love to do and then we had to do them. Now we just have a screen and we can watch other people and we can just get instant shots of adrenaline and all the things that YouTubes and all these TikToks and all these things give you. We didn't have that as a kid. I want to read this letter really fast. I think it's important. And again, I don't want you to take this as me trying to be a doctor or me trying to be a know-it-all. I'm not. What I'm trying to do is saying, like, whatever it is that we are doing isn't working. It's making shit worse. And so maybe there needs to be another perspective. And the only perspective I can give you is that I have 5 kids that are fucking quote unquote normal. And I'm the most abnormal piece of shit like out there. Like on paper, I'm probably not like fit to be a great parent. However, all my kids are really doing well, really successing in life, and not having near the issues that I had as a child. And I think that all comes down because I don't allow them to have the screens, and I homeschool them, and I'm not forcing them. You know, I have hyper kids, and I think if my kids were in school, they would absolutely be failures. Let me say that again. If my children were in public school, they would be failures. Maybe not August. Augie could probably sit there and really actually love and benefit from a traditional schooling. I think he enjoys obeying rules. He enjoys doing all of his chores when he's told to do them. He's like kind of like the perfect child when it comes to obedience. He loves art. He likes to do his schoolwork. But Duke in a school, he would be expelled. Elkin probably be a school shooter. That motherfucker doesn't take shit from anyone. You call him, you say he looks like a girl, he will fucking punch you in the nuts. Like there's no way. But you know what? They have skateboarding, and that keeps them very well rounded. If they don't skateboard, they're assholes. If they skateboard, they're great. If they go out and build forts and squirrel traps, they're great. If they sit inside and play video games, they're assholes. I'm not a perfect parent. So here we go. This is a letter. My name is Matt Powell. I live in Manchester, Connecticut. I am writing to you tonight to express my opinions on the newly proposed firearm bill submitted by our state senators and representatives. In case you have not noticed, the state of Connecticut has 3 major issues related to gun violence. The first is that we have multiple large cities in which lives groups of people who do not get along. These groups decide that the best way to face each other is by drive-by shootings and stabbings. This idea of it's just the way it is appalling. Governor Malloy's idea of bringing representatives of these gangs together to discuss their differences in civilized ways is a great start, and I applaud him for this. The second issue we have related to gun violence is the blatant lack of enforcing the laws we already have on the books. How many people were arrested for gun-related crimes last year? From possession of unregistered firearms, carrying a pistol without a permit, carrying a weapon on school property, for unsafe storage of firearms, assault with a deadly weapon, and so on. How many of these cases were nulled? Look into the facts. It's alarming. The third issue we have in this state regarding gun violence is this: mental health care. The mental health care in this state is lacking significantly. What does it say about a government that shuts down their mental health facilities and lets those who need help back out on the streets? What does it say about a society, and more specifically a government, that does not realize the facts about prescription drugs and their role in these mass shootings? Here's a list of murderers, mass shootings, and the relationship to prescription drugs. I think you will find it interesting. Eric Harris, age 17, first on Zoloft and then on Luvox. Dylan Klebold, 18, Columbine school shooting in Littleton, Colorado, killed 12 students and 1 teacher and wounded 23 before killing themselves. Klebold's medical records have never been made available to the public. So Eric Harris was on Zoloft and Luvox. They did not let us know what Klebold was on. I wonder why. I wonder if it was the same. But why make one? Why let us know which one has it? All right, let me keep reading here. Jeff Weiss, age 16, 60 milligrams a day of Prozac, 3 times the average starting dose for adults. When he was only 16, he shot his grandfather and his grandfather's girlfriend and many fellow students at Red Lake, Minnesota. He then shot himself. 10 dead, 12 wounded. Here we go. There's another common thing. Where was the traditional marriage in all of these? You're living with the grandparent, and the grandparent has a girlfriend. It's not traditional marriage. Me personally, Eric Tansey feels that a traditional marriage is extremely important. So if you're young and you haven't got married yet, if you're that young cop, make sure that before you get married and that you have kids, do your due diligence, because you're making this decision on behalf of what you do for your kids. And I would go at great length to try to save my marriage if it's possible. I understand that there's outlying factors, but it's very important. Coral Badsgard, age 16, Washington State High School, was on Paxil, which caused him to have hallucinations. when he took his rifle to school and held 23 classmates hostage. Chris Fetters, age 13, killed his favorite aunt, Prozac. Christopher Pittman, age 12, murdered both his grandparents, Zoloft. Matthew Miller, 13, hung himself in his bedroom, taking Zoloft for 6 days. Kip Kinkle, 15, Prozac and Ritalin, shot his parents. Luke Woodard, 16, Prozac, killed 2 students, wounding 6 others. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, it's so long. I mean, it's pages long. So I'm not going to keep reading it to you. And I'm not saying right now that Prozac and Zoloft and these prescription pills are causing kids to murder. And I'm not saying that they can't help, but what I'm saying is guys, we've got to step back from these school shootings, and we have to realize that these school shootings are happening outside of traditional marriages. These shootings are happening outside of unmedicated children. And these school shootings are happening to kids who are known to have a lot of screen time. And we know as much from this school shooting because, you know, when you're writing manifestos, when you're getting on these blog sites and everything, that is a sign that you're on the internet just too much. We didn't have this problem before the days of the internet. We really didn't. Frozen Stash says, my wife is getting her PSYD, it's her psychology PhD, I guess, and is against the Medicaid Kids Society, and she catches a lot of flack from her liberal classmates. You know, I have a friend, she owns a pediatric care center, a pediatric not pharmacy, a pediatric doctor. What is a fucking pediatric doctor place?
Let me look it up real quick.
Pediatric practice, whatever. Fuck it. My kids don't go to doctors. Like, we just go to the hospital when we have to. My kids don't go to checkups. They don't do any of that shit. And we also don't. We're unvaxxed family too. So, judge me if you want. I don't judge people who get the vaccines. We just don't do it in our household. Yeah, pediatrician. Thank you, Vera Kiranov. Thank you. But she's the same way, right? So she has a schedule of about 7 shots that she recommends that you get at an early age before going to school. It's like the bare minimum 7 shots, and she's very transparent. And she says that they threaten her all the time because she is ordered to give the list of 200 vaccines that children are supposed to be encouraged to take. 200 vaccines? That doesn't seem right at all. That the recommended list of vaccine schedules has a list of over 200 vaccines on it. And here she is, a pediatrician, saying like, none of these should be like, I recommend like 7 that I'm like, yeah, you probably want to get some of these. Like, if you're really worried about shit, you know, very low health risks if you get it. And she's like, but some of these have like a 1 in 3,000 chance of having like vision problems. They have 1 in 3,000 chance of having really bad side effects. And yet we are giving these kids, we're recommending these vaccines, and the chance of you actually getting the disease that the vaccines fight is like 1 in like 300,000 people in different countries. It's crazy. Volgronson says, my kids have some of the vaccines, but they haven't gotten the flu or COVID. Yeah, listen, I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm really not anti. And I don't judge parents for doing what they, as long as the parent does their research first. If you are the type of person that's just putting vaccines in your kids because that's just what everyone else is doing, I mean, again, that's a parental illness that we should probably get better at. You know, that's another one of those parental flaws that we should look into. Maybe I should give a shit a little bit more about what kind of fucking vaccines are going into my kid. I'm guilty of it. I think my first kid, we were like, fuck it, like give him that whole cocktail thing. And then like my wife was like, So if it wasn't for my wife, I would be the guy. Viera Kiranov says 200 would just overload. I'm not saying to give them 200. There's just 200 recommended vaccines. I swear to you, that's true. Hold on. Fact check.
It's over. Yeah, it's over the series of why they're in elementary school. Here's where I come back.
Do you have that? Do you have an article?
Yeah. I can pull it up real quick.
I know I didn't make that up. I would never make it up. I would never just throw numbers out there. But okay, so Nijken, you're talking about Sweden. So Sweden is one of the leading countries that comes out with the studies about violent crimes and or not violent crimes, but criminals in general and psychotropic drugs. And they say about 1% in Sweden, this was a Swedish thing, 1% of people who committed crimes, 1% of people committed crimes were on these things. Sweden has a very low crime rate compared to the rest of the world. I know you guys got a gang problem. Gang problem's completely different than the school shooter epidemic, but I think it's pretty unfair that Sweden, being a very relatively safe place, and has like extreme gun laws and all the rules that you have, like that's where we're going to pull the study from. Like it just doesn't seem like a great place to pull that study from, especially when you don't even have a lot of violent crime. And the study says specifically criminals, not violent criminals. So if you really want to do the study, it's like how many violent criminals were on these kind of drugs. But anyway, I thought that was funny that most of these testing subjects actually come from.
This is coming from the Cleveland Clinic.
Okay, read it for me.
Newborn gets hepatitis B within 24 hours of birth. This is the first dose of a 3-dose series. They get RSV, then they get an RSV antibody. 2 months, they get Hep B2, rotavirus dose. It's a whole massive list that they
gonorrhea is on there. They get a gonorrhea,
diphtheria.
So it's like 200, right?
It's a massive amount.
It's insane.
It's an astronomical amount. Here's where I always say the same thing. You follow the money, you're going to find the problem. Follow the money, you're going to find the source. The reason why they want you to have 200 of these, because every one of those, if it was $1, that's $200 per kid that they're going to get. How many kids are in school? There's a reason why they push all this stuff. Yeah. And just our little bit of research, we found that most other countries, for what was it? I think it was Prozac was the one that we were looking up. Yeah, most other countries, yeah, they won't let you have it if you're under the age of 25, not 18, 25, because the group of people that they did their studies, because my wife's getting her PhD as well, so I understand how studies work. These studies proved that if you were on this and you were under the age of 25, there was a chance that 1.5 times to 2 times the suicidal rate. There was one, I want to know the number, I want to get the number specifically, but out of 18 people that exhibited suicidal ideations, 3 of them actually did it. So 3 people killed themselves during the study.
So Frozen Stash says, "Good Lord, I hope to get a doctor like you guys." You're mentioning, listen, if you want my personal opinion on the whole doctor thing is, I don't take my kids to the doctors anymore because you get more anxiety and more problems when you go to the doctor. They try to tell you, oh, your kid's in this percentile of weight growth, and we need to fix that. Dude, fuck that. Are you kidding me? Listen, now I've got 5 kids and I let all my kids just be whatever size they want. And guess what? They're going to walk when they walk. They're going to talk with that. As long as you're being a good parent and you're paying attention, maybe you're not a good parent and you need the doctor to tell you, hey, do these exercises with your kids. But if you're like able to say like, oh, damn, my first child was walking in 11 months and my second child is still crawling at like 20 months, maybe we fucking Google that and see what we can do and try there. I don't know that we have to just jump up and go right to the doctor, but it is hard to find a doctor that's not going to, like, for us, we just stopped because the doctor was like, the doctors, if you're not going to get the vaccines, they don't want to see you. They won't talk to you. They shun you, they shame you. They all know who you are when you go in there. And so, we have a midwife. We do like kind of like have a little apothecary going on where my wife makes all these, home remedies. All these vaccines, they all start with something, guys. They all start from natural substances. They all start from natural, like all sorts of natural derivatives is what they use to make a lot of these vaccines. So sometimes you can kind of Google, hey, like how do I solve this, or how do I make homemade X and homemade Y? And my wife's really good at doing stuff like that, and she makes concoctions, and we don't go to the doctor for really anything. And then we know people that their child's at the doctor every other day, and it's like, man, what the fuck, like what is going on? And I think at this point we just do things to do it. So I don't know. Marines Bloodbath says mine and Vieira's daughter got HSP, and autoimmune disorder, which is listed as a side effect of one of the vax she kind of recently had gotten, yet the cause of HSP is officially unknown. Yeah, I mean, it's bizarre, and here's the thing, and I don't really want to blame the parents, right? Yet, because we've not been talking about it. Like the '90s is kind of when Big Pharma started taking over, and we all just, or like the '80s and the '90s, Big Pharma really started taking over, mainly the '90s, and we all just were kind of like, oh, ADHD, oh, and then all of a sudden overnight, all of our kids are on Ritalin, and then all of a sudden overnight we have our first ever big massive school shooting, Columbine. Right, like that was all at the height of the ADHD Ritalin timeframe. The whole Zoloft, Prozac, Ritalin, all that stuff. So I think there's something to look at it. Jay Kiefer says scary shit is out there. Just like anything, they expect you to be a sheep and just go with the flow. Only people being helped are the higher ups in Big Pharma. Yeah, guys, listen. To break down the school shooting incident, guys, there's not really a lot out there. They're not really coming clean with a lot of stuff. There's some sketchy things going on with this gentleman over in California, and they had enough to take his guns away, but they don't have enough to hold him. And there's some. But I'll tell you this: everything that I just said to you today is a part of the problem that's going on. The school shooting is being investigated. So I'm not going into the investigation and giving you. I'm not speculating. We know that the family was divorced, and we know that she had a lot of screen time, and we know that she was seeing a therapist and was on some psychotropic drugs. So all of these things, all these factors combined lead to a school shooting. I can't go fishing with a fish hook. So if you try to say, a fisherman is anybody with a fish hook, well, that's not true. I can't just put a hook in the water. I also need a line. I also need some kind of a bait. I kind of need a fishing pole. There's a lot more that goes into fishing than just a hook. And I think the same thing for a school shooter. A kid having a gun and being a part of a gun club doesn't make them a school shooter. A kid having divorced parents doesn't make them a school shooter. A kid that is divorced and has a membership to a gun club doesn't make them a school shooter. But a kid that's divorced, that's on psychotropic drugs, that's going to things, that's being neglected by his parents, that's suffering from parental illness, that does have a gun and is part of a gun club, now that can lead to a school shooting.
I was a kid, was on Ritalin for a period of time. My parents are divorced, and I have been to quite a few school shooting training events, but I've never participated as a school shooter.
Right, but I'm sure life hasn't been easy either, right? Like, I mean, life is never easier when you have, and I'm sure that you probably have a lot of, we all do. We all carry traumas from our families, and I'm sure divorce is, I guarantee you, I don't know that much about your childhood, Josh, but I would bet that divorce didn't make life a lot more easy for you growing up, and that you didn't have, but I'm sure you had good parents. You probably had a good dad and a good mom that even though they were divorced, they still took the time to make sure that you were properly taken care of. The problem is, guys, that's not everybody. So, are my audio levels fucked up? Nice, good.
No, he said they're great today.
Okay. I got to get some of these books out in the mail today, guys. If you want to pre-order Pig Latin, A Seriously Funny True Story, please do that. Please pre-order it. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble's, Books A Million. The book does come out in the fall, and I really want to make the New York Times bestseller list. But the book is so funny. I think you guys are just going to really enjoy the book, and I want to thank everybody. If you don't want to buy the book because you want to buy your kids something else for Christmas and you want to put your family first, I respect that. I will say that after the book comes out and I work through my contract, I will make sure that whoever wanted a book and just didn't have the extra $25 to buy it, I want to send it to you out of my own pocket, because if you want the book, I mean, if you're just trying to get something for free, please don't take advantage of me. But I ask a lot of you guys as fans. You guys are always donating money. You're always trying to help out, and I want to give back to you where I can. So anytime that I can, and I don't want you to feel weird. We don't know each other, right? We're all internet friends. We're all internet people that you don't really see each other in person or anything like that. So you should not feel embarrassed to say, Eric, I want to watch the comedy series that you're in, Office Joe. I really just don't have $17. I'm not going to judge you. I got 5 kids, bro. It's hard for me to buy a $17 something. I mean, if I have it and I want to support your business, I always do. I always try to support people's business, but maybe I want to support that business, but I'm not really, all that interested in it. It sucks that I'm missing out on it, especially if it's like a $30 shirt. And so I've always thought it's special if somebody gives you something. So listen, if you're one of those people, please don't feel weird. Say like, I really do want to watch that. I just honestly don't have $17, but I promise I will pay it forward when I do have $17, and I'll make sure somebody else gets it. There's no shame in that game. Be a part of the club. And if you just can't afford the book, and you want to put your family first, put your family first, put your ego aside and say, Eric, please send me a copy of your book. And I'll know right away that you made the right decision. You put your ego down. It's embarrassing as it is to ask for a $25 book, but instead of putting your family into kind of a financial struggle, or not putting gas in your car, your 16-year-old's car that needs gas, that you ask for the book, I respect that. I respect the hell out of that. So I love you guys. I really appreciate it. I hope I don't lose friends over today's episode. I hope it doesn't bring you down for the Christmas holidays. If anything, I hope that you hug your children, tell them your children you love them, spend time with them, be thoughtful, be thoughtful in your actions and what you do for your children and how you do it and what you say and what you do, and put them first, and it'll pay dividends in the long run. I don't want to see any school shooters, and I definitely don't want any of your children to be school shooters either. So have a great week, guys. Merry, Merry, Merry Christmas. We will be back Monday for a little Christmassy special. And then, of course, Wednesday, we are not going to have a show because it is Christmas time, baby. And then I am traveling to Savannah, Georgia. If you're in Savannah, Georgia, near Savannah, Georgia, after Christmas, please let me know and we'll meet up. Maybe for some coffee. We meet at Black Rifle Coffees and 99 Apparel right there in Savannah if you want. And then also I will be in Michigan like on the 16th of January, and in Vegas on the 20th. So if you're in Michigan, Savannah, Georgia, or Vegas, and you want to get out for a cup of coffee, I always love meeting fans and hanging out with you guys. So hit me up. Nightkin sends $269 from Sweden. Jake Kiefer, $50 for a couple of books for the people. God, you guys do not have to do that, Keith. I was mainly talking about you when I talked about people that didn't have any money, Jason. You're just a podcaster and a firefighter. You fucking Mr. Moneybags over there. And you're getting married, dude. Which we've got to do some stuff for the old Keith wedding too. So that's going to be a lot of fun. All right, guys. Hey, from everybody here at the Wolfpack, we appreciate you guys. We love you. Have a merry, safe Christmas. Don't drink and drive. Do the watermelon crawl. Guns up, giddy up. See you next time.
See you.